screens, it's a plot to drop the IQ. Fighting amongst each other over rulers that don't like you. Prefer us trapped in melancholy with the wood wands of holly. Suggestions that obliterate to camouflage the folly. Attempted mental robbery, executed sloppily. The paupers see this mockery and walk the talk with me. Put the hands up to touch the Akasha, cause you know deep down there's something bigger than your wallet.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Today, a guest who has long been one of my favorite thinkers and most down-to-earth revealers of profundity is here, and I am so blessed for it. Just a regular dude living a regular life, but holy good God, will you be blown away by the intricate viewpoint he uses to flay open the numerical games played in language and history, the philosophical meanderings leading a thread both throughout all of creation and within the majesty of this plane of existence. Marty Leeds, the Mathemagician himself, is here on Rogueways today. Marty, I'm so grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We finally got to do this, which is awesome.
Yes.
An intro, by the way.
Well, thank you. You deserve it, and probably better. But before we get started, let me remind you all that Rogueways is part of the Eyes Open network. Eyes Open provides a dynamic and multifaceted, echo-free space to think and reflect on the myriad convolutions of the modern world. We also have a network of goods and services, podcasts, and shows, all of which support minds that are awake and aware and hearts that are open and true. Come check it out at rogueways.org or in the Eyes Open group on Facebook or MeWe. We would love to connect with you there. But in classic Rogue style, let's start with a pointless question of the episode. Marty, I'm guessing I know the answer to this, but do you like puzzles and riddles?
I do.
Yeah.
In fact, when I was younger, my mom we used to do puzzles together. And when I was really young, she would give me like a 1,000-piece puzzle and I would put it together in like an hour or two. She always used to say like, yeah, she always used to be like, oh, you used to just like fly through these puzzles. And of course, I had no idea at the time.
That was just your thing you were doing. You didn't know was special.
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting. Like metaphorically, a puzzle is really interesting because there's like all these disparate pieces, and it's like you want to force it together to make order out of it, you know. And so it's sort of metaphoric for my life in many respects, you know.
I have always been really bad at puzzles and riddles, and like I like really bothers me when people are speaking in like veiled code and they're expecting me to get it, because I'm like, no, I really just like need you to spell this out for me, like what's happening here. So that's part of what I really like about your work that you do, because you kind of unveil these riddles that are hidden that I would have never noticed at all. So you obviously have that mind that sees those sort of disparate pieces and makes sense out of things.
I think riddles actually help you train your mind in that sort of way, because it makes you think in an abstract level. It makes you think metaphorically and symbolically. It makes you penetrate the mystery and reminds you that the mystery is there, you know. Since we're already probably going off on a tangent.
Yes.
You know, the longest time, like one of the ones that was like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? And it's like this sort of riddle. Everyone's like, well, there is no answer to it. It's like, oh, the chicken gives birth, or, you know, lays the egg, and then the egg makes the chicken, blah, 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 right? And so for the longest time, you know, I thought about that. And then I realized that there is an answer to that riddle. And so there's a reason that riddle was created. It's really actually deeply theological and deeply symbolic when you actually understand the riddle. What came first, the chicken or the egg? How many species lay eggs? Birds, snakes, you know, all sorts of creatures lay eggs. How many species lay chickens?
Yeah. 0.
One, right? So when you look at like, what's the symbol? What's the archetypal like symbol behind the chicken or the egg? Well, the egg is what came first, because the archetype or the symbol of the egg, right? That form of the egg is something that came first. And then you actually look at, because of its ubiquitousness, because you see it right across the world. And then you look at like the story of creation. A lot of times there's like a cosmic egg, right? And so the beginning of creation is like an egg. So in one sense, that riddle's trying to get you to think very deeply about like cosmology and theology. But on the surface, it's just, there's no answer. It's just chicken and egg and that kind of thing. But
that's really interesting.
Kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that too. I never thought about it that way. So that's really a beautiful thing. And it makes me think of in tarot, when you're going on the sort of archetypical journey from, you know, the Fool, and then you go through all the major arcana steps and you end up at the universe, or in some decks it's like the Aeon or whatever. And the deck I have, the symbology of that card is an egg. So it's almost like at the end, I don't know if they're saying like at the end you go back to like how you were at the beginning and you're at like a new set of stages of development, or if, it's just kind of hinting that there's this never-ending pattern, or
I mean, to me, it's a return to source. It's like you're returning to before the primordial scission happened, before there was the crack. In a sense, like in a cosmology, before the cracking of the cosmic egg, right? God was completely unified in that first beginning. And that, in a religious sort of sense, that's what you're trying to get back to in your sort of psychospiritual work. It's like you're trying to unify with God. That's literally what religion means. It means to relink or reunify with the Creator. So the fact that that's the last. Yeah, I mean, and I use the what is it, the AE weight deck or whatever, right?
Uh-huh.
And the last one is the world, and the world is like it's like a wreath, almost egg-shaped wreath, and it's like surrounding the human being, and then you have the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac: the Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, and Taurus up in the corner.
Which are the 4 elements as well, right?
Fixes you in the center of the whole thing, if you will. You know what I mean?
Nice.
Highly symbolic, of course, but you have to. Once again, you have to really go in and penetrate that mystery and ask the questions. The answers are there.
Right. Here's an interesting thing that we come to, because I think, your work is deeply religious, I would say. Would you say that as well?
I mean, all of it.
Yeah.
There's nothing I joke around and I make whatever. I make commentary videos sometimes and rants and stuff like that, but it's all based on theology, for sure. No question. Yeah.
And so I think that, for me, at least, when I'm listening to you and watching your work, I think, I don't know, do you identify as a Christian?
I do. I mean, I follow the doctrine of Christ because the work led me there. It was like, I say this because it's just the truth. Like, I don't really have a choice in the matter. It's not like, I decided to become a Christian. It was like everything that I did was leading me towards this. And probably because that's my family's religion. Like, on both sides, my extended family were Catholic, so I have that in my background. But also, I speak English, and as I came to find, English is completely wrapped up within the translation of the Authorized King James Version, unquestionably at this point. And so, all of that study for years, it's like, no, I ended up focusing on the Christ figure. But that challenges people as well, because I don't, when you hear Christian, most people have this idea of what a Christian is,
right.
And what I'm teaching, what I preach, what I talk about, what I lecture on, flies directly in the face flies directly in the face of what modern Christians believe about the Bible, historicity, and things like that. It's like, no, I stand against it, in fact, because I think that interpretation strips away the true beauty of what's behind that document. And so I come out strong with that. So I always have to sort of do a caveat or explain myself when they ask me a Christian, because immediately there's so many people that do not understand these sort of deeper levels of things that they automatically get this sort of preconceived notion in their mind. Oh, you're just a crazy guy, blah, 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 whatever. Because there are fanatical, absolutely dogmatic and fanatical Christians out there that you can't, I can tell you firsthand, you cannot have these kinds of conversations with. You cannot.
No. Absolutely. Well, that's what I love too, is that understanding that you're giving people, that being Christ-like or following the doctrine of Christ does not necessarily mean what we've been taught that Christianity means, and that there is something else there that you can salvage almost out of the sort of wreckage of modern religion, because people have such this negative view of Christianity, and there's a good reason why. And so then they kind of just cast out the whole thing, and then they like head a different direction. And I'm like, that reactionary way of being does not necessarily lead anybody to wisdom. And I think you can find truth and wisdom in a lot of different places. But one of them is definitely this, the holy text of the Bible, as well as a lot of those works that were left out of the Bible, I think, also,
Even beyond that, like, this is the sort of, Christians, like we just talked about the Tarot, right? If you said, well, there's absolutely Christian ideas encoded, would be considered Christian, but which I understand now is universal, really. But Christian ideas in the Tarot, most Christians be like, wow, that's devil worship and that's sorcery and you can't, and it's like, I mean, I just hate to say this, but you don't have a fucking clue.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to, in one sense, in your mind, you're trying to separate God. You're trying to say God is not here, and it's not here, and it's not, and it's only here. Mm-hmm. And no, you're so wrong. I don't even know where to start. I'm saying that when you flip on a light switch, God is there. When I'm saying you look at a flower and how it grows, God is there. The light that comes from the sun that shines on that flower, God is there. On your phone, you pick up the phone, Jesus' name is right there on your hands. So I try to teach this stuff, and that's it's just either it's too much, or they don't know where to start, or once again, they've been programmed so much to reject all of that, that when somebody comes like myself that comes in with a lot of, I mean, common sense equals 32, but common sense to the matter, I think it's a challenge. And so their only reaction is to be reactionary. It's like, no, I have to reject that.
Yes, well, and it literally is too much for them. They have been programmed out of being able to conceive of something so large, right? Which is sad.
Well, I mean, the other thing that it's like you're stripping away the creativity, mystery, and magic of God.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're stripping and what things that would be construed as esoteric or mystical, which to me point directly to poetry and beauty, number one. You're taking all of that and stripping it out and leaving just sort of the dead language there. And then just placing faith over top of it and say, well, even though this is sort of like I can't make sense of most of the verses, none of this makes sense in any sort of like real time frame and stuff, I'm just going to go ahead and believe that and abandon my common sense, my rationale, my reason. And then there's my faith. Well, when I came to that when I was really young and trying to figure, and I didn't know anything, I was trying to figure out the world, and I was handed the Holy Bible and said, well, this is what people believe. And I picked it up. I'm like, what the f are you talking about?
Yeah.
There's something missing. There's something that's not, there was, and I even remember at the time I was like, I don't know how old I was, 20 or 22, something like that, when I tried to just pick up the Bible and read it from front to back. I remember even back in the day, I didn't know anything about any of this stuff. I didn't know about symbolism. I knew nothing about math. I remember picking it up and being like, there's some sort of key missing. There's some sort of legend missing. There's some sort of something in order to make sense of this document. I thought it intuitively at the time. Of course, I had no idea what the fuck I was even thinking, right?
Yeah.
I had no idea. It was only 15 years later or 20 years later, whatever it was. I was like, oh, okay. And now I know. I was just, sorry, I don't mean to keep talking, but I was just reading.
Keep
going. Had some coffee.
Yeah.
I was just reading this book. It's called Initiation to Kabbalah, I think is what it's called. Anyway, this book was written in like 1887, and it was a Christian Kabbalist. And he was talking about how it was like within the first 10 pages, he's talking about how the Bible is one of the most misconstrued books of all time, and that without a proper understanding of Kabbalah, and literally 2 sentences later he mentions Gematria, you're not going to understand this. And so it's like, geez, I wish I would have read that when I was 22. Yeah. But of course, that's not what happened. It took 5-6 years later for me to even start looking into what would be considered symbolism or esoterica or occult. Of course, that's a highly charged word right there. Immediately people go negative, evil. It's like, just means hidden. There's things that are hidden in the Bible. That's all,
And probably for good reason too. But don't you think that maybe coming at it from that sort of backwards angle of like building it yourself and from intuition instead of reading about it in a book and realizing that was the truth, maybe made it so that it's more believable and more sort of like internalized in your being?
Yeah, visceral for sure. Yeah, I mean, learning things from the ground up, I think, is always the way to do it. You always have teachers and guides and sort of, and that's what that would have been like a favorite philosopher or a really good author that I like and stuff like that. But doing it yourself that's truly the spirit of masonry in many sense. Like, it's autodidactic. You have to put yourself on that path. You have to self-initiate. Don't think anyone's going to do it for you. No one's going to grab your hand and be like, "Go, come this way." No, it's all up to you. And that is such a huge part of what would be considered like the spiritual quest or journey or undertaking, whatever. And most people just aren't on that. They just don't. They want it fed to them. They want it high. Can you just do me the highlight reel?
Yeah.
Can't. That's not how it works. It just doesn't. And you either have to accept that or not. So. Right.
Yeah. So then, and often I think when people are being led, or when they do find somebody who's like, yeah, come this way, like, that's probably the wrong way to go. Like, there's probably a reason that person is trying to get you over there, and it's probably not for your best interests.
Well, that's the unfortunate thing, is you come to find over the years that there's a lot of those, I don't even want to call them necessarily snake oil salesmen, because there's a lot of honest or, good people that are just, they're on the wrong path themselves, but they think they're on the right path. They want, that sort of thing. They're misguided themselves. So, but unfortunately, you find out there's a lot of those people out there, and a lot of those people misguiding.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to. Oh, actually, really quickly, was the Kabbalah in this book you're talking about, Initiation of the Kabbalah? Was it spelled with a Q or a K?
Oh, he spells it. The book is spelled with a Q. In fact, he spells Kabbalah differently. He spells it Q-A-B, no U, so Q-A-B-A-L-A-H.
Huh.
So, and he talks about in there. I haven't gotten that far into it yet. I just basically started it, but he talks about in there. He goes into the Greek numeral system and then the Hebrew numeral system and like Chaldean. And then he mentions Roman really quick, but I don't think he goes into English at all. I mean, I don't think he might have known the cipher. I don't know. I'm not that far in the book or anything. I doubt it, to be honest. But
So do you
he
think
does.
this is?
I look at it through the Greek lens and the Hebrew lens. So,
Wow. Is that gonna, do you think, lead you to learning Hebrew and Greek?
I mean, I'll probably never learn those languages. I don't really have any reason to, At this point, if I'm going to learn any language, it's German, just because my wife speaks German. So, and I don't. So I'd like to speak to her family, but it's a really hard language to learn, at least at this stage of the game. My lord, some of the like phonetics are just impossible for me to make, and it's
In
just
German?
certain. Yeah, it's really difficult. I don't know. No, as far as numerically though, Hebrew and Greek have explored a lot. I've
Yeah.
even written about it in some of the books and stuff like that. So um, I've explored it enough to see that, there's not an A to A correlation in any of these languages, as I don't really think there should be. Because there's different languages, different phonetics, different different orthography, different spelling, different number of letters in the actual language itself. So there shouldn't be, but there's enough there, and you can see that what is being focused on in all of the languages unquestionably is the foundation of mathematics and specifics within that language. And those things being, which are, things I talk about on my channel, the mathematical constants behind them. There's no question. There's no question that E, pi, tau, squaring numbers, squaring the circle, that these sorts of things are encoded within literally the Christian savior. And it's like, so it's very interesting to me that there's not that many Christians, or there's not that many people in general that like it's like that should be. If I heard that for the first time, like if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, did you know that there's music encoded in the Bible? Like, did you know that a G of that the name God and Lord is a G chord and basically a B minor chord?" If you would have told me that 10 years ago, I would have dropped everything I was doing. Like, shut the fuck up. Show me this. I want to see the proof. I want to see it myself, right? I would be busting my ass to go see that. And it's interesting because I present this stuff and it doesn't really get that many views. It just doesn't. Most people are just, oh, it's too much, or they think I'm a kook or whatever it is.
Or they just don't see like the value in what that would, do for them. Plus they've got that like fluoride brain that they have to like fight through.
There's definitely that. I mean, once again, in our world, just like we were talking about, all the mysticism has been completely stripped out of it, to the point that a lot of these truth seekers, right, that host shows and they have these debates about politics and whatever it is. I mean, they're not going to have a quote unquote numerologist on their show, because they already know, quote unquote, no is an anagram or numeric permutation for pi, by the way. They already know that that's all nonsense, right? That guy's just a snake oil salesman, whatever. And it's like, I mean, I just hate to say this, like you guys don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this world is run by the esoteric, and most of these people have never even studied 2 pages of it.
Yeah.
So I come along and I'm just like, hey, let's try to straighten some things out. Let me show you some stuff here, guys, right? I'm not doing this to be like pat myself on the back or try to roll the red carpet out for Marty Leeds. It's like, no, this shit's important, yo.
You're trying to like rip the veil off of some stuff and be like, look what's behind there.
And it's like, some people are like, whoa. And some people are like, oh.
Yeah.
What are you doing today?
Well, do you think so? Like, I know that the sort of conclusion that you have is that this is all intentionally designed by a creator, and that's all encoded in this. This whole plane has that sort of majestic aspect to it. But I think some people could possibly look at all of the things that you see and think that this is another indication of that like simulation theory. And do you think that those 2 things are at odds, or do they jive in any way, or what do you think about that possible interpretation?
Well, whenever somebody talks about a simulation theory or like a hologram, what I've found is that people already have this sort of definition of what that stuff means in their head. And it's like, well, a hologram, like they say, well, so therefore it's an illusion, it's not real. Well, just because it's an illusion and it might be more of a Maya, if you will, doesn't mean it's not real to us.
Yeah.
Even though this might be this might be more of a dream state, which I actually think it is in many respects. That doesn't mean you don't feel pain or suffering or joy or elation, any of that stuff. Of course we do. But that doesn't mean that it can't be holographic. And holographic, when you actually split up the word, it just means hollow. It means whole, comes from holos, the Greek term. So whole, graph. Well, what's a graph? It's a 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional plane. So in other words, there's a whole graph. And in general, a holograph, something that's like a hologram or holographic, tends to be fractal in nature, which basically, whole is in the part is in the whole, right? In fact,
which is pretty amazing in itself. That's a beautiful thing.
Basically all it's saying is that, that is design, and that not only that, you can understand the design. So this is a whole graph. So much so that how you walk through creation is dimensionality. It's 3 dimensions, right? So even that, when they take reality and they try to map it onto like CGI or a video game and stuff like that, how do you think they do it? They do it through math. They even use fractals to create mountainsides and things like that within video games and movies and stuff like that. So basically all they're doing is taking reality, mapping it onto a pseudo reality, if you will, and doing it with mathematics, purely. Number one, the thing that they're doing it on is the computer, which is based on what? 0 and 1. The entire thing is based on a binary system. So that alone should tell you something. You can map reality so well in which, we are captivated by it on these computers. You should tell you that the nature is mathematical. Well, it is. There's no, anybody that studied it can clearly see phi is everywhere, pi is everywhere. You know what I mean? We can go out and measure the degrees and angles of things. Everything that you build is based on mathematics. It's based on construction engineering, masonry, geometry, all of it. Then I ask, why weren't we taught this stuff in school? Well, there's your answer, because there's answers there.
Yeah.
Of course they're not. So I've said that for years. I'm like, why do you hate math? Why does nearly everyone I've ever fucking met, I'm like, oh, math, it sucks. I just can't make sense,
Yeah.
Trained to have that response.
For real.
Almost like Pavlovian. It's like I say math, a bell gets rung, and you start salivating. You know what I mean? Anyway.
It's really true. And people hate math. And I actually got into trigonometry because I was tutoring a girl a while ago. And so I had to reteach myself. But when I was reteaching myself, I was noticing more and learning more than I'd ever did in school. I was seeing just kind of the beauty of it. And I was graphing these sine curves, and I was like, this is incredibly beautiful. And I was writing poetry about math, and I was like, why? How did I get to this place where I'm in love with math, and I don't understand how we couldn't have been shown this beauty of it back then. But like you're saying, I think that is intentional and by design, which really should show you something. It should show you that that's exactly where you should probably look the hardest.
And I think people intuitively actually like it. They actually, especially, maybe not math so much, but geometry for sure. Just as you were saying, when you draw, and even just doodling and scribbling and stuff like that, a lot of times you're drawing circles, you're drawing ovals, you're drawing square, you're doing triangles, stuff like that. You might not be conscious of it at all, but that's what you're doing, and you're enjoying it. It's fluid for you, When I was in high school, they had a drafting class. It was sort of those what do they call them? Auxiliary classes or whatever.
Electives.
Yeah, electives. There you go. I'm sorry. Elective classes you could take. And so I took home ec and made muffins and shit like that. But one of the classes was a drafting class. And so, and once again, I was, I knew nothing. I wasn't even exploring God or math or anything at that point. And we had these graph papers. And then we would just have to draw squares and circles and stuff like that and make them equal areas, or you would have to, draw specific degrees and stuff like that. And I remember I fucking loved that class. Not only was it because I was with a bunch of guys and they were just, chill dudes and, they got high out and, at recess and shit. It was fun. It was engaging. There was just something about actually doing it that links you in some weird way that is very, it's not even really languageable in a sense,
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So I think sometimes you have like teachers who can kind of unleash that like atmosphere, and certain subjects maybe can lead to that. But in general, we've got this like linear math that's like very repetitive and very boring. It's presented to us boringly. I'm sure there's beautiful ways. I feel like if you taught a math class, like then kids would be like, whoa, this is actually really intriguing.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what I don't like to. Whatever, I'm not like an egotist or anything like that, but I
Right.
usually humble. But I mean, yeah, I
But
would
you
tell.
have the insight that would like give
Yeah,
them the key.
yeah, if I could teach children, I mean, I could put together an awesome class that would really get them engaged for sure. I wouldn't even have to do anything with gematria or God. None of those links at all. Let's just look at design. Let's look at that.
And
The other
you'd
thing
have to,
about that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you'd have to get them young enough before they'd been trained out of, hating it.
Wow, yeah, that's that's the trick. Considering that we're like indoctrinated pre-birth, you
Yeah.
know, our parents are being indoctrinated while they're, with food, energy, and frequencies and all that sort of shit. 5G, what it is. But the one thing I was going to say is the one thing you're also not taught about math is that really struck me when I was starting to learn it is that it's not just quantitative; it's qualitative too. It's like you can look at the number 7, but you have to say, well, okay, well, wait a second. The number 7 also has a geometry to that number. What does that geometry say? How does that geometry look in nature? Where do we find it in nature? Do we find it in nature? What is it? What's its relationship to 360 degrees? Does it divide evenly? And all of that sort of stuff. So there's qualities to numbers that you're never taught. And I basically had to learn from scratch on my own. If people were taught that as well, I think they would be much more, you're just taught math to basically balance your checkbook when you still have checks, that is. Anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When people still cared about their checkbooks instead of just like letting their app tell them how much money they have right now.
I'm dating myself as
What?
I'm dating myself, as you can tell. I'm when
Yeah.
people used to.
Well, that class you're describing, I'm like, I want to take that class right now, actually. Like just have a lecture where you just go through like numbers 1 through 9 and their various like qualitative aspects. Like that would be fun. Actually, do you have that? Have you already made that video?
No, that's one of the things that I've basically been trying to do ever since we started the website. But it's like it's ever since moving here, it's been one thing after another. I just get knocked off course, and I'm trying to do one thing.
Yeah.
One of basically trying to do at MartyLeeds33.com is essentially build a mystery school. So right now I'm lecturing, and so I do specific lectures. Sometimes very long lectures on specific subjects that some people, like the Heliopolitan mystery. Most people have no idea what that even is. And it's like, then you go through it. And then I've had people be like, holy shit.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do that sort of stuff. And in a very like studious sort of, way on the website. But one thing I do want to start doing is building classes. And one of them would be what I already call the alphabet of the divine. And basically just looking at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, looking how they interact with one another, the qualities, that sort of stuff, learning how you can learn them on your fingers, all of that sort of stuff. So that's what we're trying to build. It's just, it's a long process. I'm doing this, on my own essentially. So
Yeah, you're doing it from scratch. Well, that's pretty cool too, because you've moved out there. I don't know if you want to tell people where or how open you are about that, but tell us about your transitions and kind of what you're doing.
just so you know, I'm an open book. So
okay. Me too.
Yeah. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm totally cool with. So
Okay.
we moved out here. It's honestly been a dream of mine for a long time to sort of live like almost like in a cabin or off grid or whatever. I kind of dreamed it would be in like Colorado or northern Wisconsin or something. I didn't know it would be in Hawaii, but so we moved out here basically to live off grid and just basically live in jungle and grow our own food and stuff like that. So that's what we're trying to work on right now. But it's a slow process because everything costs money and that sort of stuff. But yeah, we moved out here about, I think it's a year and a half ago, and we've had this place for about a year. So we have water catchment, we have solar, we have a compost toilet, we have about an acre of land. We're getting basically a garden area. We're trying to get that prepped. Yeah, basically just trying to do it on our own. Get away from all of that.
A lot of work.
Well, that's the other thing, yeah. So I'm trying to work a regular job and then trying to do this on the side and then also work on the property. And so it's, it is. I'm not complaining at all because I'm very blessed in that sort of sense, but it is a lot of work, I basically took this weekend off just because I had to stop. It's like,
You need a break once in a while.
Yeah. So anyway, But
well, I think a lot of people don't realize that when someone like you is making content all of the time, is that you also have like a regular life and you're also doing, regular, like taking care of your house and having a job and trying to get by. So I think that's good for people to recognize.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things that before we even moved out is I was basically working a full-time job, 37, 8 hours a week, whatever it was. And then, doing live streams and then trying to write a book and, that sort of stuff. And so I was getting burnt out. And so it was like, one of the things, it's like, well, we could go live cheaply and things like that and live off grid like we always wanted to do. And then I could focus more on this. But even that has been like, I'm still working 4 days a week. Just, that's just the climate. Everybody's working, everybody's stressed out and, taxed financially. I mean, everyone I know anyway.
Right.
The way of the world. So I'm no different than anybody that's listening.
Yeah, I think I like that. I mean, I wish that you didn't have to work that hard, but I like that you're just a normal person and you don't have, I think it's kind of, it just makes it more trustworthy, that you're coming from a place where you're just a regular, real guy, has a regular, real life and goes through all the same things that everyone else does.
Yeah.
It's harder for people to accuse you of being in the Illuminati when you live in a cabin off grid and you have a job.
It's true, yes. But you still get it.
Yeah.
But people want to create conspiracies, especially if they don't know you or they don't understand the material, or maybe I said something that doesn't jive with what you think about reality. And I've seen it happen so many fucking times where people will just start creating conspiracies in their head about who I am or who other people are. Forget about me, just other people online, where it's like, none of that's true. Like you are wasting your time. You're wasting good mental energy trying to paint me as something I'm not. When meanwhile, it's just like, no, I'm just shitting in a bucket here.
Yeah.
You can go ahead and create all conspiracies you want and let that fumble around in your head and whatever. Good luck. But it's got nothing to do with reality or me.
Right. So, and there's plenty of real conspiracies that could have your attention, you don't need to go creating more. But how is it in Hawaii? Like, is it, because I know there's some places where you can't collect rainwater legally and where, if you have solar panels, that's fine, but you have to hook them up to the main electrical grid anyway. Some places you can't have composting toilets, like all of those things. So is Hawaii pretty cool with all of those things, or?
You really don't have a choice out here. That's the cool thing, is that they can't really clamp down on any of it. Number one, the native population lives here and tons of them are off grid. So number two, they just don't have the money or the infrastructure to go and actually, enforce any of this stuff. So number three, you have to get rainwater because there's not wells. I mean, so you have to basically do water catchment, and then the grid, as far as where we are, there's electricity and stuff like that, but there's no internet out here. So I'm actually on sort of a Wi-Fi right now. So that's the other thing, is I basically spend like $300 a month for internet.
Wow.
Well, that's with our phones too, but I have to, I'm on the phone because I can't be on the internet because I don't have enough internet to do this on my computer. So anyway, so basically it's impossible for them to really come down on that. And we live in a lava zone. So we're on lava zone 3, right? So, and as far as we know, we're, fairly safe, but you are on the world's most active volcano. So anything can happen at any point, right? But so it's really difficult for the quote unquote authorities to come down on these people. Number one, if they wanted to fine them, everybody out here is poor. Nobody's got the fucking money to,
we got to fine, whatever.
There's a little dance here. I mean, it's truly, in a sense, like the rest of my entire life, I basically always just tried to like keep moving out west, like go west, young man kind of thing.
Just further and further.
It's truly west out here. It really is, So it's pretty fitting for me, I guess.
That's pretty cool. And then it's also a really nice growing season, right? Like you guys have an abundance of foods available.
Yeah, all year long. You can grow food all year long.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's our next big step, is getting our garden going. But the land that we bought, and we bought this place for super cheap. Like for those of you that are interested in any of this stuff, there are places you can live off grid too. I know there's places in like Idaho and stuff like that 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 you're not going to be bothered, right? But as far as out here is concerned, like we bought this place. I mean, we're about 5 minutes from the ocean, and we live in sort of it's I don't know, it's sort of a neighborhood. It's a very large neighborhood, but so we have neighbors and stuff clearly, but we're pretty segregated. We're pretty secluded, and we bought this place for under 90.
Wow.
Yeah, we bought it for $89. So within, hopefully about 4 years, this entire place will be paid off.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I'm not paying electric, I'm not paying water, I'm not paying a mortgage,
Yeah.
a debt, mortgage.
Yes.
The other thing, sorry, I don't mean to keep ranting here, but then the taxes here, there's basically hardly any taxes because you're on a lava zone. So I think this year with our homeowners association fees and then the taxes, we paid like $500.
That's nothing.
It's nothing. I mean, some people will pay that more than that a month for taxes on their property.
Yeah.
So it's like, so for us, it was kind of a no-brainer. We wanted to live off grid. She loved the tropics. It was just kind of like, yeah, let's do it. And luckily, we found a good place. We were basically going to build a yurt. That's what a lot of people do, or build a little cabin. But when we found this place, the cabin was already built. Any money that we were going to put into it was like already put into the place. It was just
that's cool.
Yeah. And the other good thing is we didn't have to go through a bank. We were basically just paying the people directly. So
I like that.
Yeah. So a lot of benefits, and like anywhere, there's positives and negatives, but there's a lot of
you have flying cockroaches that are the size of softballs.
That's one thing.
That is my worst nightmare. So that's the reason I can't live in Hawaii.
Oh, yeah. No, you'll get used to them. Actually, I've only seen one big cockroach like in our cabin, so it was not even that big of a deal. But yeah, I know my mom's the same way. She's like, The thing though, the centipedes though, that's something else, man. The centipedes are freaking look like, what's that guy's name? H.R. Geiger, the guy that did the
like Alien.
Aliens and that sort of shit. That's what they look like. I'm not even joking. Straight out H.R. and they're like huge. Some of them are like monstrous, and they have these like exoskeletons. Anyway.
Oh my God. See, so like you find all of this like evidence for God and design, but then that's evidence of like Satan and evil. Just something to torture us a little bit.
Yeah. Sharks too. I'm not a big fan of sharks. So.
Yeah, and you got those there too. But you can probably swim and surf like year round, so.
Yeah, we pretty much can. So like I said, we don't have like a beach, it's a rocky beach, it's a lava beach or whatever, but we've got tide pools right down the road. So we go there all the time, and the stars out here are retarded. Wow. I mean, so unbelievable. Even where we are, we have light pollution around here just because of houses and stuff. But even that, we don't have like street lights and stuff like that, so that's good.
Yeah.
Stars, we see the Milky Way all the time. If we go down to Kana, where we used to live, which is about 20 miles from here, there's essentially no light pollution. It's right by the ocean there, and the stars. It's remarkable. We would just walk out in the street, and you look up, and you could see everything crystal clear. That's the benefit of living in Chicago.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I worry about with the younger generations, especially those who grew up in cities, is that they don't go out into nature. They don't have nature nearby to them. Sorry, my light is like flickering. It's like going to give me a seizure here. But and they don't see the stars, because it's all light pollution, and then it's light pollution and it's chemtrails, and so they just never see the sky really at all, or any aspect of nature. And I feel like that's probably intentional, and I feel that being able to have access to nature and especially the stars and stuff, there's something inside of you that sort of like knows or remembers some sort of connection, or like it reminds you, like even if you can't put it into words and you don't know the exact like formula of it all, there's like something there that's like calling you back. And so it makes me really sad that people are getting so disconnected from nature.
It's a good way of saying it. It's basically why a lot of poets were so enamored or so drawn to nature, and they poeticize it, they romanticize it in that sort of way, because there is something about it. There's a connection with nature, a connection with stars, that sort of thing. You can't really language. The best you can do is pull a poem out of it because of that connection. That is getting lost. It's scary. I mean, I've spent a good portion of my young adult life in nature. We lived in the woods. We lived, for a while, lived in Estes Park, lived in the woods, lived on the beach for a month in California, just putzing around, now I live in the jungle. I lived in 10 acres of woods when I lived in Albany. I would always be an avid hiker, that sort of thing. So I think it's very, very important to have that connection. And the fact that it's getting ripped away is very tragic.
Yeah. And what do you think the kind of goal or the purpose is beyond? Is there a goal or purpose beyond just disconnecting us, do you think? Or
disconnecting to God in every way. I mean, that's what it is. That's why when you asked about like, is all your stuff sort of like religious or theologically based? Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's what it's all about. I mean, before I even understood flat Earth and then getting into flat Earth, it's like that immediately was clearly what was happening. It's like, no, you're trying to hide God. You're trying to, distance people from number one, reality, and of course, what is reality? That's what God has put, that's the untarnished, unvarnished, just undiluted truth of the matter. They're trying to take you away from that.
Yeah.
So any disconnection they can make with God and man is that, it's a notch on their bedpost, if you will, or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
flat Earth, you think is the way to go? That's the truth.
Well, I mean, I'm a flat earther for sure.
Yeah.
So,
I started, like a lot of people do, by looking into it, by trying to say, like, well, this is ridiculous. Like, why would people think this? And then I looked into why people thought that, and I was like, I can't disprove any of that. And they're all really good questions. And then I became like, I honestly don't know. I've always hesitated to call myself a flat earther because I can't. It's almost like technically, I guess I'm agnostic because I can't prove whatever, but in reality, like, I know what I know. So
well, that's the thing with flat earthers will say too, is that they'll just be like, because I don't know if there's a dome. I don't know if it's
yeah.
I have no idea unless I go there. I mean, I'm like you. I have no idea. Most flat earthers will say this, though, that I know that I'm not on a spinning ball 93 million miles away from the sun. That
seems pretty obvious to me too.
I mean, just last night I got off work and I went outside and it was very cloudy. I was telling Jennifer this. Super cloudy, and then right where the moon was, the clouds broke, and then the light of the moon came through, and that's all you could see. The rest was just clouds. I was like, okay, so you're mean to tell me that moon is 238,000 miles that way, and the light from that moon, which is reflected from the sun, is bouncing back and cutting through this one little part of the cloud right here, 238,000. It doesn't make any sense at all. I don't even know if you could create that, and yet we'll just stop believing it. There's no reason to believe it. That one of the things I always say too is just because you don't have to, number one, you don't have to know the truth to know it's a lie.
True.
And you don't have to know, you're not going to know everything. You are going to live and die in this world. And there's going to be the majority of things in this world you're never going to get an answer to. True. So you have to live with that. You have to, number one, accept that, recognize it for the truth. That's a fact. There's going to be so much when you die that you don't know, and live with it. And the thing I always say is it's okay to not know things, but the things that you can know, because those are foundational, and at least for me, when I got to know those things, it was like, where does that lead? Well, God, a creator, a grand artificer, no question, unquestionably, to the point where it's like, once again, like I said, like it's not even like I wanted this in a sense. It's like, no, this is where it's leading. You have, if you're going to be honest with yourself, this is what you have to say. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to be honest with myself then, so.
This is really intriguing for me because by accident, I've now had my second interview in a row where you're saying the same thing as my last person said, which was that like they didn't set out intentionally to sort of justify Christianity or find a creator or, go that route. But every single thing they found along the path was like pointing them back to that. And at some point you have to just be like, okay, like that's, it's not it's not an accident and there's a reason why. And you can't really hide from it. So it's interesting. Like, I think people who are listening to this could think that I've done this on purpose, but I haven't.
There's not a conspiracy here, people.
No. This is how it happened.
That everything leading back to a point where it's like, once again, when we talk about the Christian angle, looking at a multiplication and addition sign at one point and being like, well, that's the cross. Okay, well, we're in symbolism here now. We're in the land of symbols here. What does that symbol mean? What does it mean in the mathematics? What does it mean in, like cosmology? What does it mean in the Christian doctrine? That sort of stuff. It's like all of that sort of stuff. Like you would think that what would addition and multiplication have anything to do with the Christian doctrine? In fact, if you ask most Christians, they'd probably be like, well, now he's talking numerology or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, man, no. Even that is trying to lead you right back to what we're talking about. And it's like, I'm trying to teach that because it's like, wow, that's remarkable. What a poetic, magical, mystical beauty that is. Something so simple as two lines crossing can lead you right to essentially God within. if I'm going to say it, succinctly.
Well, now you have me thinking about the division sign as like almost like that picture of like the lovers. There's like one on either side, and they're like making a line between them.
Oh yeah, like the separated. Yeah, well,
divided.
Yeah, it's almost like the circle divided, but you can't ever really divide the circle because there's always a wholeness to any division, right? There's just like when you count in creation, we almost always use whole numbers when we look at things. Like you don't say, it's like you have an orange that drops on the tree. It's like until you cut it in half, right? You say, well, I got half an orange here, but that half is still, that's a whole part of that orange, right? You could almost say I have 1/2 of that orange, but it's still whole. There's still a totality to that thing. Anytime there's a separation, just in like mitosis or meiosis, right? You have a cell division, but does that cell split and it's like 180 over here and 180 over here? No, it becomes a whole new cell, right? So the division symbol is almost that. It's like dividing something. Nothing can ever really be divided.
Indivisible. I love that. It's like making me think about that. Is it that nothing can be divided by 0?
Yeah.
Right. So that's like kind of indicates the same thing, that everything is whole. You can't divide it by nothing. You can't make it nothing.
In a sense, look, I mean, this is something that you talk about, that basically there's a cosmology in our number line, right? So like 0 and 1. Look at those. Number one, that's how this whole internet is created. 0 and 1. It's a binary system. When you look at the qualities of what 0 is, 0 is considered a non-number. So, but it's still a number. We still use it as a number, right? 0 is nothing, no thing. It's immaterial. It's immateriality, right? So in a sense, what would that be if you were going to take that into some sort of like mystical language? Well, that's spirit, right? That what would be the counterpoint to spirit would be matter. Well, what's the next number? It's 1. So then you have a wholeness in 1, 0, nothingness. 1 becomes everything, if you will. Well, basically what you do there, you did spirit and matter. Both of them are whole. Number 1, spirit would be wholeness, oneness, totality, universality, right? That sort of thing. Right. And 0 is what? Well, you cannot divide by 0. In other words, you cannot divide you can't take spirit and divide something within spirit. It's not, because God is whole. God is one. God is unity. So, and those are qualities that are irrefutable in our numbers. It's not like I'm just pulling a rabbit out of it, right? And I'm just like, no, anybody would have to agree with that. Yeah. Does 0 mean 48? No, doesn't. 0 means 0. 1 means 1. 2 means 2. These things have qualities, specifics, essences to them, and when you learn them, it's irrefutable.
Well, that's part of what I love about your work too, is that it isn't just. There's a lot of people who work with numbers where you're like, yeah, you can do a lot of things with numbers. You can make a lot of numbers into a lot of other numbers, and you can kind of get meanings out of that if you want. But it's like, you could do that a different way and come to a different meaning too. But what you're doing is always like, no, this is what it is. Like you're saying there, like you can't really argue it. There's no other way about it.
That's the interesting thing about numbers. Something that's happened to me several times in this pursuit is getting lost down the rabbit hole of numbers. And numbers will actually, I mean, if you're once again honest with yourself and pay attention to the material and honest with the material, they'll tell you stop. As you said, you could get to a point where it's like you could just make any number fit anything and make any sort of connection, that sort of thing. I don't mean that entirely or absolutely, but in essence, you can do that. But there's also things in mathematics which would be considered mathematical constants that are used in quantitatively, qualitatively, esoterically, religiously. It doesn't matter what capacity in which they're used. They're always there. They're the standing stones of creation. They're the cairns on the path up to the holy mountain. They're always there. So when you focus on those, you realize that what you're looking at is directly looking at is the architecture of creation, to the point where it's mathematical constants, things that are like the base 10 system, the decimal system, pi, tau, phi, all of these things. They're everywhere in creation, right? You focus on those, you're dealing in the realms of the divine, right? You go scattering your brain off into rabbit hole after rabbit hole. It's like, I picked this number here and I grabbed one over here, and look, I'm going to make this connection here. That doesn't necessarily mean that connection's there.
No.
So
it might be fun, but it might not lead to truth.
Yeah. It took a long time to really get where I am in understanding this, and so I don't expect a lot of people to just get on board and understand it. But I also try to teach people like my own mistakes or whatever, or things that I've gotten wrong, or at least specifically show why what I'm saying is correct and why it's verifiable and demonstrable. Because I think that's important. If you're going to present yourself, gematria is considered a science, whether modern science likes to think that or not, or whatever, it's considered a science. So therefore, I have to take that seriously. I have to say, okay, if it's a science, then if I'm going to show you something, 100% of the people, 100% of the time should have to get that as well. Yeah. Period. That's how science works. Yeah. And if you think it works anything else, you don't understand science. So I have to go from that place. That's where I have to I establish my foundation. If I'm not doing that, then I'm just, pissing in the wind in a sense. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. But I love that, because people can actually follow along, and you encourage people to follow along with you and be doing this as you're doing it, right? So that they can see that this is actually how it's done, and this is actually the conclusion you come to.
Yes. The thing that I found is that most people are like, well, what do I do with it? That's what people want. They want, it's like, well, do I make money with this? Do I, unwrap some conspiracy with it? Do I? None of the above. And this is what I lose people, because that's not what it's there for. Because it's there to advance your spiritual life, not make you a bunch of money, not find out who's going to be killed in the next news article, or not to, or figure out when the next false flag is and stuff. I'm not saying that there isn't some of that angle there. There is. The elite absolutely use this, unquestionably. Yeah. There's no question. That's why it's on the UN logo. That's why it's on the emblem of Israel. That's why it's on all of these things, right? They know this information. They live and breathe in the esoteric, for sure. What was I saying? What the hell was I saying?
But that's not what it's for. That's not what you're not providing it so that people can like.
What it's for is to help you understand God more. And most people are like, wow, whatever. I mean, in a sense, like what is flat Earth for, right? You could say, well, I might be able to make free energy now that I know that the Earth's not a ball, or whatever. You can make all. But really, what is flat Earth there to do? To help you understand your world better, to help you understand what God created for you and humanity. This is no different. You're not, it's not like you're going to make I certainly didn't make $1 million recognizing that the number 180 is found in 4 different languages using the same cipher. But you know what it has to understand? That God is mathematical, and that he's literally, these ideas have been embedded within multiple languages, and that these ideas have been implanted all over your human body to help you understand design, to help you understand where you came from, who created you. People want something from it. That's what most people, that's the world that we live in. That's not what this is for. This is why I'll lose 89 to 92% of the people that stop on by Marty Leeds live. And I at this point, I have to say, good day. I don't know what else to say,
Well, I think that
opinion, especially to the Christians. I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep ranting, but especially to the Christians that roll by. It's like, oh, what is this? Or, oh, he's a devil worshiper or Satan or whatever, It's like, you're lost, man. That book is unbelievable. Unfucking believable. And you don't have the first clue about it. I had heard somebody, a fairly, I don't want to say his name, but a fairly well-known dude, and he's been talking about logos a lot, talking about Christianity a lot. And he said that astrology is nonsense. And he was literally telling thousands of people to stay away from astrology. And I'm like, dude, the entire Bible is astrotheological.
Yeah.
You're calling yourself a Christian, talking about Christ, and you have no idea that at least in one symbolic manifestation, Jesus Christ is the Son, at least in one symbolic manifestation, to the point where specific numbers are encoded in his name. And you're ignoring all of it. And not only that, you're telling thousands of people to steer away from it. So what can I say? Am I going to fight that? Am I going to go online and be like, oh, you fucking idiot? Yeah. It's like, I just have to, good day. Your loss.
And the loss of all those people who believe him without investigating it for themselves.
Yeah, it's really sad in many respects, because once again, those mysteries they're being revealed, they're being opened up, and people are looking at them and being like, "No, okay."
Well, and it's fascinating to me, because it's like all of this is encoded in the very fabric of reality, like you're saying, like it was built in intentionally. And one of the beautiful things about that is that you can't hide it. So as much as the elite are using this and are steeped in it and trying to hide it, and it is occulted, but it can't be totally hidden forever, right? Like that is actually the thing about it that is so beautiful, is that it's accessible to anybody who can start to think and look at things and investigate. And so and I think that is also leads us to where, because another thing, like what you're saying, is that you're not giving this to people so that they can go and kind of figure out the future, make a bunch of money or whatever. But what is actually valuable about it is that it shows you what you are, right? And what power you have. And the power in that is actually the only power you need. I don't think it's possible that we're going to find a way to sort of like deconstruct the elite power structures of the world in the way that they have everything clamped down by sort of like figuring out like, well, if we do this on this day and we all go here and we all like storm Area 51 or whatever. And I don't think that's the way it's going to be. But I think that empowering ourselves enough to know what we truly are and what we're worth is the path towards getting out from under that sort of oppression. And so that's all possible through these encodings.
Just knocked it out of the park there.
Well, thank you. So I think I hope that people who are looking into your work are looking for those reasons, to understand themselves better.
That's what I've hoped for a long time. I've just, as I said, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here or anything like that. But as I found, that's just not the case for most people. It's just not. And I just have to deal with it. I just have to live with it. I have to accept it. I'm not going to say it doesn't frustrate me, because it fucking does.
Yeah.
But live with it. There's nothing I can do. This is the thing that people ask all the time. What you just said is like, what it's there to do is, number one, to tell you that God exists within you. Not only that there is a God, not only that this thing is designed, it was created specifically for, at least in the drama of the human experience, it was specifically created for you. Yeah. Okay? Not only that, but then it says, where has God centered himself? He centered himself within every bit of his creation. Every ounce of his creation, he has centered himself within there. God is to center everywhere and circumference nowhere, right? So that Christ spark, that scintilla, that portion of God that is considered the Christ is within you. That empowers the human being. It says who your authority is. When people come to understand that, they would say, it's like, oh, well, this person over here, this government, this agency, this corporate, whatever it is, that's my authority. That's why I answer to. No, it's saying that, no, your authority is who authored you. And who authored you? Well, besides your parents, but who authored your parents? God. All right. So that becomes your authority. That's whose laws you follow. If you want to be in alignment with God, then you follow what would be construed as natural law, if you will. The law that God has put down on this earth. All of those things within modern Christianity, at least for a majority of the Christians that I've seen, that central tenet, that central idea, that central axiom, which is the core precept, the crux means cross, the crux of Christianity has been removed. It's been stripped out of there and said, you take that, you put it aside, and you wait for Jesus Christ. Like, that's not what that book says at all. At all. Not even close. And that's what's so unbelievably frustrating, because then you get the Christians that come by and it's like, oh, he's a blasphemer and stuff. It's like, no, I'm trying to get you to understand what your book is actually saying. And then I've done extensive lectures where there was one called The Cult of Christianity, where I sourced no other book, nothing besides the Holy Bible itself. I said, we're going to go and read 40 different verses here that says specifically backs up everything that I'm saying, not just mathematically. Forget all that. I'm just saying exactly what the book says. One of the things I talk about is who is Emmanuel. I don't know how much you know the Bible or the New Testament. This is something that I came across like way back in the day. I was like, what? Who's Emmanuel? You have this prophecy that's given in the New Testament. A virgin shall be with a child and give birth to the child, and his name shall be Emmanuel. Then the next verse, Jesus is given birth. Okay, well, wait a second. I thought the prophecy was revealed and his name was supposed to be Emmanuel, and it's not Emmanuel. Emmanuel is not mentioned anywhere else in the New Testament. And instead, we have a story now of Jesus. What happened to Emmanuel? Okay, well, then you go and actually, what does the verse say? It says it specifically, directly, specifically, succinctly. It does not mince words whatsoever. It says Emmanuel is to be interpreted as God with us. Okay, well, where are all the Christians talking about that? I don't know of one. So I come along and say, I want to have a conversation about that. I want to talk about that. As a Gnostic Christian, someone who has a divine mystical insight into nature, which just means simply I can look down at a flower and the growth of a flower and say, hey, Christ is there. That's all that means.
Yeah.
Of course, that's true. That's the conversation I want to have. Good luck, man. Well, that is pulling fucking teeth, is what it is. So, sorry, I don't even anything, but you can, these are the struggles that you have when you're dealing with this information. Most people just they run for the hills when it comes to this stuff.
Well, it's that conditioning again. Like, it's so deep. So people, anytime that something comes up that doesn't mix with what they're, especially in the Christian programming, the traditional Christian programming, and anytime something comes up that doesn't mix with what they've been taught, then that's automatically Satan. You don't have to think further than that, because that's just what it is. It's Satan. So then you're done thinking about that and you can move on. And it's just too easy, and it's too complete, and it's too hard to deal with. I don't know the way around that, other than like divine sort of like inspiration in the moment that just like does it for that person, because I don't know that you can help anyone out of that. It's a trap. It's a pretty like.
I mean, the thing that I always bring up too is that there's a lot of these Christians out there now that are like would be considered like conspiracy theorists, whatever. That they're aware, if you will, to literally all the manipulation across the world, everywhere. Like they'll come out and say like everything is a lie. We've been deceived about everything, except my body.
Yeah, except that.
Maybe that thought that you were having about 99.99999% of things being fucking manipulated and turned on its head, maybe it extends to your faith too. So when I come along and say, I'm not saying, hey, it's a conspiracy, abandon your faith, abandon Christ. I'm saying nothing of the sort. I'm saying there's a bigger picture to be looked at. There's a bigger story to understand. That's it.
Yeah.
Literally there's literally a preacher, a Southern preacher, who has done multiple sermons about how I'm a Satanist. It's like,
really?
It's like that's so funny.
I was like, I would actually rather prefer that you be my preacher if I was going to have one than any other preacher I've met. So like that would be a cool church to go to. But basically you can go to your church because you can go watch your videos on Marty Leeds Live. So you actually, that brings me to, I wanted to ask you about, it was Marty Leeds 33 was your channel that was, I'm missing the words right now. It was deleted, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And what happened with that?
Well, I mean, it's happening to everybody on YouTube. I think YouTube has taken down like several 100,000 videos. Give me 1 second.
No problem.
YouTube has taken down like hundreds of thousands of videos and thousands of channels and things like that, just because it doesn't fit with the narrative, right? There's a status quo that they need to push. It doesn't fit with that. You challenge that. Of course, they're just going to take your shit down. So I don't even really focus on YouTube anymore. In fact, somebody asked me, it's like, hey, where are all your videos? I'm like, they're at martyleeds33.com. I just don't, if like the platform doesn't want me, why do I want to go to that platform and spend all my time putting focus and energy on building? No, it's just like it's like, oh, we're going to make the gay couple bake a cake. Well, why would you go to that bakery in the first place? They don't want to bake the cake. You fucking leave. Go do your own thing. So that was my opinion. It's like, fuck you. Pardon my language. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Fuck YouTube. And so I'm just going to do my own thing. So that's what it was. So martyleeds33.com, I got taken down because I did a video called We Need to Talk About the Jews. I did a video called Am I an Anti-Semite? And then another one that was an update on Sandy Hook and Wolfgang Halbig. And those are the three videos that got a strike. Which was so interesting because I knew I was going to get a strike for the documentary just because that's just YouTube. They just take that stuff down. The video on Am I an Anti-Semite, though, was a video talking about how I am not an anti-Semite, explaining what Semite means, how that's not Jewish at all. It's actually talking about the Semitic languages and its entire Phoenician and Chaldean and all that sort of stuff, just like I was reading in that Kabbalah book. Excuse me. I'm not an anti-Semite. I actually teach the mystical aspects of Judaism proudly, and like I have multiple lectures. I have chapters in my book about this stuff. It's not like I'm like, oh, I hate the Jews. It's like, no, I mean, in my holy book, the New Testament, Jesus is called a rabbi. So it's pretty hard for me to go and hate on Judaism or the mystical aspects of what that lineage that actually brought my Savior to where he was, right? So I go and I look at, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and the 5 finals, the 27 total letters, all the mysticism as far as the actual symbology of those letters and what they actually mean. One means pen, one means door, one house, blah 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 blah, right? What all that sort of means. The mathematics behind that, all of it. It's awesome. It's undeniably awesome, right? There's no question about it if you understand the mystical aspects. So when somebody comes along like YouTube did and took me down because of that, it's just like, that's just so outrageous. It's just, it's just hypocrisy upon hypocrisy. What am I going to do? Go and sue YouTube though? No, I live in a fucking cabin in the middle of the jungle. I ain't got any cash. So instead I'm just gonna be like, okay, YouTube, you don't like me? No thanks. That's why I don't do Facebook. That's why I don't do Twitter. They do not like our kind. Okay. Well, instead of continuing to be tethered and strapped and, to that narrative and that, all of that, no, do your own thing. Start your own narrative. Start your own, conversation. So it might not go anywhere mine, but you can do it.
Well, you already had quite a following. So have you noticed that a lot of people have followed you over to your site?
No.
People
don't. That's the thing is like when you lose your YouTube, and everyone experiences this. I'm certainly not exclusive to me, but as soon as you take down, your site gets taken down, whether that has 100,000, whatever, you go back to, tens of thousands of that, which in some sense, it's like, okay, well, why were those people following you in the first place? If they weren't really that interested in your work to just go and subscribe to another channel somewhere, it's like, well, then did you really lose anybody? I don't think so. In my opinion, I don't care about the amount of people that actually come to the channel or likes to subscribes and that sort of stuff. I care about people that are actually coming to the channel and learning the stuff.
Yeah.
If that's 12 people, then okay, great. I'd rather have 12 people that are actually going to learn it, maybe teach their children so their children can teach other people at some point and know this level of information than 45,000 people that are like, oh, I saw that one video about John Podesta. I really liked it. And that's it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate the like and the share and all that sort of stuff. But that's not what we're doing here,
Right. Well, that's, I think, in any real teaching, you're going to get a very small fraction of people who are actually in it for learning it and internalizing it, and a lot more people who are just kind of casually like looking at it for a moment and then moving on. But I've also heard that it is really hard to get. I know I have my own site too, and no one goes there. But I would have thought that like if you had your YouTube channel and you had all these people and then you were like telling them like, hey, I'm going to have this all on my site now, that you would have seen kind of a bigger push in that direction. But I guess it's hard to get people to go to websites no matter what.
Yeah, people are very shackled to the like Instagram. They like to go to the YouTube. It works slick. Everything's there. They can go and click. They can, all that sort of stuff. And people like that. So trying to get them off the platform and go somewhere else and really support somewhere is very, very difficult. I can't worry about it or focus on it because I certainly can't worry about trying to build my thing or audience or whatever on YouTube, because YouTube can just come along and, oh, he was talking about this at one point and just shut you down. It's like, you can do that on the internet too. WordPress could do that at any time too. I fully understand that, but at least there's a little bit more protection away from YouTube,
Yeah.
At least host and say whatever the hell I want, If you don't,
I didn't know that WordPress could do that. I guess I know that they technically can, but do they practice censorship?
They took down, I think it's back up, but they took down Jay Dyer's site, Jay's Analysis at one point.
Oh.
And yeah, they just shut it down, and he had tons of articles on there, tons of videos, that sort of stuff.
And I know that Freeman just had some issues, but I'm not exactly sure what happened with that, if it was some sort of censorship issue or if it was something else.
Okay. Yeah, that's coming. I don't mean to be, once again, the Debbie Downer, like pessimistic or anything like that, but these corporations and these institutions are not friendly to people who are trying to push against the false narratives of the status quo. They're just not, know your enemy and that sort of thing. You can play the game for as long as you can, but at some point it's like, no, I'm not going to continue to, go hang out at YouTube if YouTube thinks that I'm a fucking kook or whatever, wants to just, who has the audacity to shut my channel down after I'm literally speaking positively about Jews.
Yeah.
At one point, it's just like, pardon my language again, but fuck you. Okay, I don't want to hang out with you anymore. You're not a friend of mine. You're not you're not helping at all. So right. I'm gonna be over here. That if only 20 people come over here, well, if I don't get anybody over there, then I'll have to shut down the site eventually because it costs money and it takes time and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But so it's a gamble right now. I mean, I'm going to run it for another year or change or whatever and see if, you know, we can get more people over there. But as of right now, it's pretty, you know, I very much appreciate all the people that come over there and learn and stuff. But it is slim pickings.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, it's awesome. I mean, it's a labor of love, but it's awesome that there's at least some people who are getting a lot of good out of it, and it's a beautiful thing that you're creating. So I'm grateful that you're doing that. And I think that it points to how dangerous to the establishment your teachings are, that you're somebody who has been targeted. So, because there's plenty of people on YouTube who are being actually, you know, hateful towards various types of groups of people, including Jewish people, and are not getting taken down. So it's obviously not really the thing that they're looking at, you know? That's just an excuse they use to get rid of people they don't like.
Yeah. Yeah, I had somebody, it was on the Kabbalah of Man lecture, somebody wrote a message saying that she was really into a lot of these conspiracies and like alternative thoughts and things like that. And she had a boyfriend of like 8 years or something like that. And he was like an atheist or an agnostic. And they sat down and they watched this 4-hour Kabbalah of Man video. And at the end of the video, he's like, I believe in God now.
Wow.
Wow, well, I guess, you know.
That's
just
pretty
that,
powerful.
I mean, it is pretty powerful. And I forget that stuff sometimes, that is out there, you know. And so it's a nice reminder. It really is. So, and Jennifer has to remind me that sometimes too, because it's very easy to get down about this stuff when you work so hard and then you realize there's really, it just kind of dies, you know what I mean? Like you put it out there and it's like, hey, did you know there's music in the Bible? Hey, and then 300 people actually watch it from beginning to end, you know what I mean? And it's like, I'm grateful for those 300 people for sure, you know. And that's the other thing about YouTube and like a lot of those channels, it measures your click, right? It counts the click. So if somebody comes and checks your, you know, like, oh, I got 10,000 views on this. Well, that, you know, that could be 10,000 people that watched it for 20 seconds.
True.
You know, really what you're looking for is the couple hundred people that actually sat through the 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it was that, you know, learned what was actually being taught. I'm concerned about those people.
Yes. Well, and that, like I said, that like ripples out then, because then they're going to teach other people whatever aspect of it they did get. They're going to then send that out in some way at some point too. So it goes out into infinity. But it is hard to know because I think people look at people like you who are producing content, and you know, you've got all of these projects going, and you're well known in these circles, and they think that they have this tendency to think that you're kind of, I don't know, not just a regular human, or that you kind of like know what your impact is. And I think people forget that people need to hear about the way that they're affecting people, you know? Like you want to hear about the people who are like, I believe in God now, but they forget that maybe you don't remember that is the effect that you're having on the world. So it's nice to get positive feedback. It's way more likely that people are going to be like, fuck you, you Jew hater, and you're like Satanist, you know, and like you're getting all of the negative sides, and it's much more rare that people are going to take the time to tell you about like the good effect that you had. So hopefully people will be more likely to do that in the future. It'd be nice.
Yeah, thank you to people that have.
Yes. Well, I want to ask what your advice would be to people. Like, do you have any advice to people, what kind of like habits that they could develop or practices that they could start that would help them sort of develop as spiritual people in the world?
No, I have no advice.
You're the first person ever to have no advice.
Well, number one, I mean, I do, but I mean, I don't like to tell people what to do or what to think or anything like that. That's not where I come from. I don't like, you know, I like to present information and say, this makes sense to me. I'm going to explain why it makes sense to me. I'm going to explain why I'm so passionate about it. I'm going to relay that information to you. And if it makes sense, then you take it with you and you take it as you go. That's kind of my thing, you know. As far as advice, as far as like living an upstanding, perfect life, I'm far from that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I've been a rebellious, I've been on benders my life. At one point in my life, I was a quote unquote player, you know, way young in my days, played in bands, did drugs, you know, have not always been the healthiest person. In many aspects I've been a hiker, a biker, a runner, you know, at one point I was fairly athletic, you know, eating healthy, but I've also drank too much, smoked cigarettes for years. So in no way, shape or form am I putting myself out there as some like, you know, perfect model of the, you know, that's the thing. It's been a freaking rigmarole getting here in many senses. you know, in many respects, it really has. So I appreciate that path. I do, because it's been huge ups and huge downs, but those are sometimes the things you need to really recognize the expanse that, you know, of creation, if you will. So my only advice would be, at least now, is, you know, make sure whatever you learn, make sure it makes sense to you. Like, make sure you truly understand it and know it, and it makes complete sense to you before you ever even try to believe in anything. In fact, in a sense, don't believe in anything. Make sure you can, quote unquote, verify it. You know what I mean? That was always the thing with God with me. It's like, I'm not just going to believe in God. No, fuck you. If you're just telling me, well, just have faith in it. No, I want proof. I want evidence. If I'm going to say that, and especially go out and do as I do and preach about God, I'm not going to do that unless I know, unless I can say, yes, I can prove that this thing has been designed. Why would I do anything else? That doesn't make any sense. It's not living in honesty. It's not being genuine, that sort of thing. So my advice would be that, seek out the evidence when you can. Don't just go and believe stuff because, might make sense to you at the time. There was a lot of shit that made sense to me at the time that I found out I was wrong about. So,
True.
You know what I mean? Until I got actual proof, if you will.
That is good advice. I like it. Well, you already told us that we should go to Marty Leeds 33.com to find more of you. Is there anything else you want to tell people about projects you have coming up, or where they can go, or how to connect with you?
No, that's about it. MartyLeeds33.com. You can become a member. There's, tons of stuff there. I've got all the books behind the paywall there. A lot of the videos that are like controversial behind the paywall as well, just to basically protect them, because they need proliferation and they're not going to have it out on, YouTube and things like that. There's books, there's documentaries, there's music, there's videos, lectures, all that sort of stuff at MartyLeeds33.com. I do host videos on Marty Leeds Live. That's where I live stream. If you want to check that out. But yeah, that's the best place. So Gematria calculator there as well. So if you ever want to start punching in some numbers, but
because that's an app that people can actually get on their phone, right?
It was until just about 2 days ago, and I found that the app developer, I think his site is down or he's gone or something like that. So I don't have an app for the phone anymore. I just can't afford to actually make it because you need to update it all the time. It costs money, so just don't have it. Which is fine, but the calculator is on MartyLeeds33.com, so you can just go and use it right there. So, yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, any last words that you want to give out to people before we wrap things up?
No, thank you. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. And thank you that we actually got to do this. I'm sorry, it took 2 weeks.
I'm excited to have it have happened at all. So that's amazing. And fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. And this has been your analog, electric, concentric dose of wisdom according to Marty Leeds. Marty, thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
A puzzle and a riddle are difficult and mind-bending, and sometimes we want to rant at the riddler, just tell me the answer. But to be casually handed the secrets to such a mind-numbingly majestic level of profound and labyrinthine creation of pure genius is to waste it almost entirely. We are often entitled and complacent, lazy and content to idle. It is when we work to truly see, when we peel and peel until our fingertips scream, that we appreciate the splendor under the surface, waiting for our minds to touch it. So until you peel so deep, my friends, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first.
Well said.
Thank you.
It's a one-on-one lesson, so do your homework. Make your dome hurt while up on earth. My bones are blessed from holy dirt. Vibes manifested to words that told me search for verbs and adjectives to describe birth. Worth more than one can speak, while the tongue feeds a weak, a sour taste in your mouth, bittersweet. Words can also kill you when you sleep. Mind condition, low frequencies while the subconscious mind listens. I can tell a vision filled with lies disguised as truth, and spread it like the word to the youth. Watch the tube. A place where the God gets booed is sorcery. To recreate a God forgery does more than meets the eye. Not too many know. Just hear me flow like the eye of Horus Penio. Yeah, not ready to leave until we believe we're free to go. You hear me? Right.
material will eat ya. Stuck on this plane, lanes use jet fuel to greet ya. The dimensional 3 ain't beating me on top of the 4th. Didn't climb Jacob's ladder to squab with a sword. Forged with Yggdrasil, branched out. Try quiet your lamps now. Ascension past the matter. Let they slam out they damn mouths. We ain't on land now, but they over in a stand. Sacrificing wisdom, hoarding dumber, kosher, wicked hands. Putting faith in worthless worship of the mortals. Artificial portals, mass ingestion of the black goo. Bioengineered morsels, conversing with machine elves. Bypassing maggots, they stuck on Android screens now. I'm scrolling emerald tablets. Moloch living lavish, off the back to the savage. Them clasp hands at the Sabbath. Smack of energy damage, they done twisted the tongues. But nanotech in the lungs, the awakening's begun. All they really can do is fucking
run.